What's up everyone? Welcome back to my 4-Star School YouTube channel. In today's lesson, we are going to learn how to send the request to your backend using some third-party library in the Flutter. As you see in this Mindmap, I have listed some of the package we're going to cover in this tutorial. So the first one will be the built-in.io package, which is called HTTP client, and the next one will be the HTTP package. I also list out the deal package in this Mindmap, but we're going to cover it in the coming lesson. If you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page, and I have created Flutter build app from scratch using the GetX, and also I create the Flutter UI from scratch tutorial and Flutter GetX tutorial, Flutter tutorial for beginners, and Start programming language tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. First, let's open our Visual Studio Code and the Android emulator. As you see, I have wrote some code before today's lesson, and I will walk through those examples and give you the explanation. So first, we're going to cover how you can using HTTP client to send a request over the internet. So let's open this HTTP client.example.dart. As you see, I declare the save list widget, which is called HTTP client example, and I wrote the function which is called request. I'm going to sending the request when I press this button. So back to the Mindmap. As you see, I have listed out all the steps we're going to follow to send the request. So the first step, we're going to create the instance of this HTTP client. As you see, the first line, we're going to create the instance of the HTTP client, which is came from this .io package. So the second step, we're going to use HTTP client .get URL, this method. So we're using this HTTP client .get URL, right? And we construct our URL. In this case, I'm going to use a public API. You can send a request, which is this JSON placeholder. They provide the raw resources, so we can send a get request, post a request, put request, patch request, and delete request to the poster route. So we can click this guide, and it shows us how can we send a request. So we just need to construct our URL. So back to our Visual Studio Code, and we construct our URL. I'm going to send a request to this endpoint. As you see, this is the output we're going to see. First, you will return a single post contain the ID, title, body, and use ID. The HTTP client also provides us some extra method we can use. For example, we can use this post URL to send a post request and put the URL, delete URL. Since we are using the get URL, so we don't need to send extra data. So if you're using this post URL, you're going to create another variable which is called payload, and you're going to put your data in your payload, and you're using this request.add. You're going to encode your payload and using this UTF-8 format, and then you can send a request to your backend. The third step is you using this headers attribute, and you can call this add method to construct your custom header. So for example, we construct our headers by adding the token, and we can append the secret token string to our header. And then next step is we're going to close our request. So we're going to await until we have the response. And the next step is we using this response.transfer, and we pass this UTF-decoder and convert our response and concat to a string. So we will get a string of response. And then we need to close our HTTP client, which is our last step. Let's open our emulator. I'm going to click this button and watch the console carefully. So by press this button, we're going to send our request to the JSON placeholder. So when I press send request by HTTP client, as you see, we immediately get the response, which is a JSON string, contains the user ID, the ID, title, and the body. So back to the web, you can see we are getting exactly the same format of this output. That is the first way to send the HTTP request over the internet using this HTTP client. But in the reality, we are not using this to match. We were probably using this HTTP package and the deal package. Next, we're going to talk about sending the request using this HTTP client. You can always reach out to its official documentation. So in the pub tab, you just search the HTTP and you will see these details for this package. This package allows you to make individual HTTP requests, but also it allows you to open a persistent connection by using a client. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Code. Let's clear our console. And here I create this post.dart class. As you see, we're going to use JSON placeholder. This endpoint, you will return this post back to us. We have this user ID, title, ID, and body. We create this from JSON, this method, and we have another method which is to JSON, and last is this static method, this from JSON. So consider we will have an endpoint to return a list of posts. So we could call this method to return a list of posts. And back to this main.dart, I'm going to comment this out. So uncomment this, I think, okay, and save the code. As you see from this screen, we have a get post, list, create post, update post, and delete post. So we're going to cover all of those endpoints. Compared to the HTTP client, HTTP package provides a more convenient way to send a request. As you see, we only need these two steps. The first step is you construct this URL using this URL.parse method, and then you can send a request by using get or put, post, or delete. That's it. That's how you send the individual HTTP request using HTTP package. So back to the Visual Studio Code, and here I create this post client, and I declare the base URL, which is this JSON placeholder, and then I create another variable which is a post endpoint. So I manually concat this post route, Next is this fetch post method. We will return the future of the post. By provide this post ID, we will get back our post. So first we construct our URL by using this endpoint concat with our parameter, which is the post ID, and then we will await this HTTP using this get method. We import this http.dar as a HTTP, so we could just using this http.get, and then we have this response status code equal to 100. Indicate we have successful get the data back. If you don't know the status code, here I find a website which provide you a better reference. So first we're going to scroll down, refer to this red. If we sending a get request, if the return is 200, it means our request successful. So we could check our status code is equal to 100. If it equals to 100, means we successful get the response data, and we could using this JSON decode convert this JSON string to our post object. So you will call our from JSON. This method will convert our map data to the post object. Open our iOS emulator and back to this HTTP example.dar. So here is the UI for this screen. So first I create this stateful widget, and I set this requesting this variable to false. We are not display any data on the screen. So as long as I press the button, this requesting will change to true, and the data will show on the screen, as you see. So first we're going to initialize our post client, right? Then we can use this post client to send a request, and we create this post variable and make it future post. So then we can combine with the future builder. So by scroll down, you see, so first we have this get post button. When I press the button, we're going to assign this post variable with this method. It will return the future of post, right? And then we change this requesting to true, and it will display on the screen. And scroll up for this future builder. So first we put the future as this post. So you will check if we have the data back. If we don't have data, or we encounter some error, it will show the error message. And as long as you click the button, so first it will show a circular progress indicator, right? And then when we have our data, it will show these text widget contains our title and the body. So let's clear our console and hit this get post. As you see, when I press the button, you will trigger this post client.fetch post. As you see, the fetch post will call this one fetch post, and we will see the response the body in our console, and also we will see the title and body on the screen. Okay, so let's click this button. Yeah, you see, and as long as I click the button, we get the response body, which is the user ID, ID, title, and body, and we will get these posts back, right? And we show on the screen. So first you see we have a circular progress indicator, which indicate we are loading the data. As long as we get the response body, it will display our title and the body using this text widget. Okay, let's clear our console and reset our screen. So the next method inside our post client will be fetch posts, which will return a list of posts. As you see here, when the status code equals 200, I'm going to return this post.list from JSON. So we're going to convert this JSON string to a list of posts. Right, so you will return a future of list of posts. So back to this HTTP example.dar. Instead of return this single post, we're going to return a list of posts. So I'm going to comment out the code here and uncomment here. So we will return a list of posts, right? And the future we just pass this future of list of posts. And since it will return hundreds of posts, so I only display the first two posts. Okay, so let's save the code. I'm going to press this get post list. So when I press this one, you see we got two posts, right? Back to this post client. As you see, I will call this list from JSON. So the list from JSON will take a list, and we're using this map function, and we will map individual element using this post from JSON. So you will return a list of posts in this case. Okay, let's clear the screen. So the next method in this post client will be a create post. As you see, when I press this button, I'm going to construct a new post. So I'm using this http.post method. So first argument will be our URL, and the next one we're going to specify the content type, which is the application JSON, and the char set will be UTF-8. So as you see from this JSON placeholder, you will show how to create resources. So first you're going to construct your JSON string, and then you will set the header to this content type application JSON and change the char set to UTF-8. So you follow exactly the same back to this Visual Studio Code, and we're going to using this JSON encode to construct our JSON string. And you see here status code, we're going to check if it equal 201. And back to our reference, so we're going to use this create. So the 201 means we created the resources. 200 here means everything is okay, but we're just using this 201. So back to the Visual Studio Code, and here we're going to check the status code if equals 201, and then we're going to return back these post object, right? So by default, when you call these route using this post method, you will return the response body will contain the ID, title, body, and user ID. Actually, you will return this JSON string back to you, indicate which post you are create. So I open this emulator and back to this example. So here I'm going to comment out these future of list of post, and uncomment these future post and save the code. So here I'm going to press this create post. So watch the console careful. So when I press this one, and I will get exactly the same as you mentioned on the website. So we create a new post with this ID will equal 101, and also we will show this title and body on the screen. So it means we successfully send a request to the endpoint. So the next method inside this post client would be the update. Like these create, we're using the http.put. Basically, you almost the same as we use in the post. So you will update the user ID, the title, and the body. We're going to specify which post ID we're going to update. So here we're going to update the first post. When I click this update post, we will update the first post by changing its title to update title, the body to update body. Okay, so the last one is the delete post. So since we are not return anything bad, as you see here, I just return this future void, and if it's successful delete, I just print out this delete success. So here I'm going to clear console and reset the screen. Also, I'm going to comment out this a future builder. Okay, so and let's press this delete post. As I press, you will see the console will output we delete the resources successful, and I delete the post. So the ID would be 1. So I'm going to delete the post and indicate we delete successful. Okay, back to the Mindmap. As you see, the HTTP package can also sending the multiple requests to the send server. So the first step, you just need to create this client using http.client. You create the client and you can make multiple requests using the same client, and then you need to close using this client.close. So I think here should be client.get. You can using a client.put, client.delete, and make sure you're going to close the client after you finish your request. And also, if you're going to retry, I mean resending your request after it failed, so you could wrap this HTTP client with this retry client. By wrapping this, default it will provide 3 times of retry to resending the request to your backend. Okay, I think that's all for today's lesson. I hope you learned the basic knowledge of how to sending the HTTP request using either HTTP client or the HTTP package. In the next tutorial, I'm going to cover the base usage for this deal package. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, thumb up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next video. What's up everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's lesson, we'll continue working on the Flutter Network series. So for today's lesson, I'm gonna talk about the basic usage for the deal package. We have been talking about the HTTP package in our last lesson. So if you want to know about the HTTP package, feel free to check my previous lesson in the Flutter Network series. Also, if you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page, and I create this Flutter roadmap for course for beginners, so you could follow this tutorial, and after you finish those, you can take a look this Flutter GetX build app from scratch tutorial and the Flutter UI from scratch tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. Okay, let's open our Visual Studio Code and the iOS emulator. As you see, I have run this DO example application on the iOS emulator, and I have wrote the code before today's lesson, and I will follow those examples and give you the explanation how to send the request to your existing backend. Follow the RESTful standard. The public API we're gonna use in today's lesson is come from this JSON placeholder website, and you see they provide this HTTP method that we can use to test our application, and we could send a request to this post route and click this guide. We will navigate to this detail page and follow the send instruction. So back to the Visual Studio Code, and as you see, the request we get back is follow this format. We have the ID, title, body, and use ID. So we're gonna to construct these post class. As you see here, I create this post class with the same ID, user ID, title, and body. And then I create this factory name constructor from the JSON and return this post object. It took this JSON map, and we have these two JSON method as well. And last one is the static method can read a list of JSON map and return a list of posts. And for the UI part, the UI part is pretty straightforward. We have 6 buttons. The first one is get post. The second one is get post list. And we have these create post button, update post, delete button, and also the reset button. About that, I using this future builder, which can fetching these request and show the result on the screen. So the first thing we're going to show you is this deal client. So if you're going to use this deal package, so the first thing is you're going to this pub.deb and you add this dependence to this pub.bc YAML file. And as you see here, after this Flutter SDK, and you can put under these Cupertino icons, and then you need to import the library. So in my DO client, as you see, I have import the library, which is do.dar, and then I construct this DO instance. I use this instance to send a request. Also, I construct these based URL, which is the public API going to use. Also, I create this convenient endpoint, which is the basic URL concat with this post route. So the first method in this DO client is this fetch a single post. As you see, we just use this DO instant get method and put our post endpoint along with the post ID, and that's it. We can get the response back by using this debug print and print out the response on our console. Compare with the HTTP package we used in our last lesson. As you see, we're using this HTTP package.get method, and we need to construct this URI object, and then we will check the response.status code if equal to 100. Then we can call this post.phone JSON, and also we need to use this JSON decoder, which comes from this Dart converter library. But if we're using this deal package, we don't need to do a JSON convert, and also we don't need to check the status code. but instead we're using this try catch block. So first we're going to wrap everything in this try block, and we catch this deal error. If we have any error, you will show the status code and also the information what is this error. So let's try it out, and I'm going to click this get post button. So when I press this button, you see this one. In our deal example, we're using this future builder. So when I press this button, you are going to fetch the post. We create this variable, return this future post, and in our button, when I press the button, I'm going to use this deal client.fetch post, and I will put the result to this post variable, and I pass it to this future builder. If this post have data, it's going to show the data. As you see, we have data back and we show the screen. And if we have error, you're going to show a text widget contains the error message. Otherwise, it just show the circular progress indicator. That's you see why when I press this button, you will show the circular progress indicator first, because we don't have any data yet, so you will show this progress indicator. As long as we get the data back, you will load the result on the screen. Back to the deal client. As you see, we print out the response to the console. We're using this toString method. We convert this map object to this JSON string, right? So if we don't use this toString, we could pass to this post.phone.json, this name constructor, and we can build this post object by using these data. And this data is actually a match the format which show in this documentation. Okay, and also you see I have commented out some code here. So it seems our endpoint is something like this. We have our poster row, and we could just pass the ID here. So we could just using deal.get, and we construct this post endpoint and with the ID. If we have the URL something like post, and we have quotation mark, and we have this ID equals 1. If we have this endpoint, we could use something like deal.get, and we could put our post endpoint, put this pure parameter, and we pass this map. A key is the ID, and the value is this post ID to these query parameters. So this is two way. You need to decide which one you're going to use, depends on your endpoint. Okay, that's for this fetch post method with the value ID. And then I'm going to change the ID to this embedded ID. So let's comment out this, and uncomment this one. Here I'm going to fetch the post with this doesn't exist ID. So let's see what happened. Let's restart our application. I'm going to press this get post. When I press this get post, you will see we have the circular indicator. After circular indicator, we will get this error, which is the text widget, along with our error message. So fail to load the post 111, right? As you see here, when we encounter any like deal error, we're going to throw these exception fail to load the post with the post ID, which will capture by this future builder. We have this snapshot.has error, so you will convert our message and show in here, pass to our text widget. And also before this line 21, we debug print the status code. As you see here, the status code is 404. That means in our web resources, we couldn't find any post with the ID equals to 111. Okay, that's all for this fetch post method. So next we're going to talk about these fetch posts. In order to get a list of posts, so first back to this deal example, we're going to comment out this future builder for a single post. We're going to uncomment out this future post for a list of posts. Okay, let's save it. And we're going to restart our application. So here I'm going to click this button. It will fetch a list of posts. Only show the first two posts. So in this button, in this on press, just using this deal client dot fetch the posts. It's pretty straightforward. And in our deal client, we could using this post dot this from JSON and passing this map object, and we could get a list of posts back. So let's press this button. When I press this button, you see we actually get the two posts back. The next method inside this deal client is this create post method. So we're going to construct the post by parsing this user ID, title, and body to the data attribute inside this post method, right? And along with this post endpoint, so we're going to use this deal.post method. It's pretty straightforward and simple, right? And back to this documentation for the JSON placeholder. And when we create these resources, you will return the resources we create. So in this case, we will get our response data, and we could using this post dot from JSON and construct the object and show on the screen. So let's open this emulator. Back to this deal example. Here I'm going to comment out this future builder contain a list of posts. I'm going to comment it out, and uncomment this single post. Right? So save it and restart our application. The reason you see we have this error because when I comment out this one and uncomment out this, so we don't initiate this post, so it will cause this error. So we need to restart our application. Okay, after we restart our application, the error is gone. And scroll down to this elevated button. So when we create, we just pass the user ID and the test title and test body. That's it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, so let's try it. So we're going to click this button, create post. When I create, so immediately you'll see the circular indicator. After a while, the title and the body will show on the screen, and also we'll get these data back with the user ID, the title, and the body. And the post ID was 101, which is created by this JSON placeholder, and you will return back to us. And we're using this JSON to construct our post object and show on the screen. So let's for this create post. So next one is update post. So it's pretty similar like this create post, but the difference is we need to pass in this post ID. So we need to concat this post endpoint with the ID we're going to change, and we can pass in the user ID, title, body, which to update our post. Right? So it's very straightforward. And back to this deal example, for this update post, let's comment it out. So the post ID is 1, and we're going to change the user ID to 1, and the title to update title, body to update body. So let's reset the screen and we're going to update the post. So when I press this update post, you see the title is changed to update title, the body changed to update body, and the data we get back is this one, and you see we successful update the data in the post which ID is 1. Okay, so the last is this delete post. So for the delete post, we are not return anything. When it's success, we just debug print these delete success. So going to uncomment this one, and let's comment out these future build. Okay, and let's try this delete post. Also, I'm going to clear the console. When I press the delete post, you see this message shows delete the post successful. Okay, that's all for today's lesson. We are covered the basic usage for this deal package. We know how to send get request, post request, put request, and delete request. And also I will put these Mindmap and source code in the description below. In the next tutorial, I will cover some actual feature come with this deal package. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, some add my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next video. What's up everyone? Welcome back to my 4-Star School YouTube channel. In the last lesson, we have talked about the basic usage for the deal package. So in today's lesson, we're going to cover some advanced feature provided by the deal package. If you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page and you will find a Flutter GetX build app from scratch tutorial, a Flutter UI from scratch tutorial, Flutter Network tutorial, Flutter GetX tutorial, Flutter tutorial, and Dart programming language tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. The topic I'm going to cover today is the interceptors. So the interceptor, that means when you're sending the request, you have some mechanism that can intercept the request, response, and error before they get handled. And there is 2 ways you can implement these interceptors using the deal package. So the first way is you're going to use the built-in class provided by the deal package. For example, in here will be the interceptors wrapper. This class will execute the interceptor concurrently. However, in some scenario, you're going to execute these interceptors sequentially. So you're probably using the built-in class, which is called Qt Interceptors Wrapper. This is the first way. You're just using the built-in class provided by the deal package. So another way is you create your own class, but you need to extend the interceptors class provided by the deal package. And you're going to override the 3 methods. So the first one will be on request, and the second one is on response, and the third one is on error. After that, you can add those interceptors to your deal instance by calling deal.interceptors.add method, or you have multiple interceptors, so you could call deal.interceptors.addAll method. Let's look at some code example that you'll get yourself familiar with. So let's open our Visual Studio Code. As you see, I wrote the code before today's lesson. I created this deal interceptor.dart file, and inside I'm using the second way, which I create my custom class that extends the Interceptors class, which comes from this deal package. I call it deal interceptor, which extend the interceptors. And there's three methods I'm going to override. So the first one would be on request, and the second one is on response, and the third one is on error. There are some scenario we could process the request before it actually get handled by our server. So the first scenario is suppose we have an endpoint that categorized into two parts. The first part is the public endpoint. The second part is the private endpoint. So for the private endpoint, we're going to append the user ID, and we could get the URL by using this options.path, and we could check if it contains some keyword they used by the public endpoint. So if it doesn't, so we will assume it's a request to access our private endpoint. So we're going to append the user ID. So that would be our first scenario. So the second scenario is we're going to validate our user and append the token to the header before the request is sent to our server. So this is quite straightforward. So we're just using this option, and we could access the headers attribute, and we're going to append our token to the header before it actually handled by our server. So the third scenario is we're trying to requesting a refresh token before the request actually handled by our server. So first, I'm going to check the header contains the refresh token. If it's not, we're going to lock the currently deal instance, and we will create a new deal instance using the new deal instance to send the request, and we will set the refresh token after when we get the response data back, and then we can forward the request to our server. And also when the request complete, we're going to unlock the currently deal instance. Since every business have a different implementation for their backend, so I cannot guarantee which one is the best. So you need to decide based on your own business requirement. The last line of this onRequest method is the super.onRequest. So basically, it just forward the request to the server. As you see, when I click these interceptor.tar file, you see when I call super, it just forward our request. Yeah, it's pretty simple. So that's basically everything for this request method. So for the response method, they also have some different scenario. We could actually intercept the response before it actually sent to the client. So the first scenario is we could check the status code. If it's equal to 200, we could do something, right? And otherwise, we could probably reject the request or show some message. So another way is we could check the response.request option.base URL if it contains some secret route, right? If it contains some secret route, we could reject the response and show some message to the client. And the last line for this onResponse method also we call the super.onResponse. Basically, it just forward the response to the client. That's it. And last but not least is this onError method. So we override this onError method. We could catch this error, and we could write the switch statement. Depends on the error type. If it's connect timeout, we could show some message, or if it's a receive timeout, send timeout, or cancel a response, or other kind of error, we could do something based on your own business logic. So after There we will call this a super down error. Probably just forward the error to the client. That is how we create our own interceptors that extends the interceptor class. So another way, as I mentioned, I could use the built-in class. So back to this still example. In here, I actually create these interceptors by using the built-in class. And every interceptor, you could either forward the request. So just call this handle.next and you'll pass the option. And if you're going to resolve the response, so you could call like handle.resolve and you pass the response, or you can call the handle.reject and you pass the error message. If you're going to using this interceptor wrapper, they also provide 3 methods. So first one is on request. So in the on request, as you see, I do nothing. I just forward a request. So another example is you can resolve this request by sending the response back to the client. Right? And another one is this on response method. Here I just forward the response, and you could, as I show in this comment, you can reject a response to the clients. You can also do something with the response error inside this on error method. So that's probably the same as you create your own interceptor class. Yeah, they're basically doing the same thing. And this is just a shorthand. You can create the interceptor using the built-in class interceptor.wrapper. So you're going to call this deal.interceptor.add. You can add a single interceptor. So if you're going to add a multiple interceptors, you could call deal client.deal.interceptor.add all. So you could pass a list of interceptor here. Here I'm using this deal client.deal.interceptor because I make it these variable static. So let's check our deal client. So we create this deal and I make it static. So I can just using this class name.deal. And so in the reality, you're going to create your own HTTP util class, and you probably were using some design pattern like singleton to wrap these deal client. Here I make it static just for demo. So if you're interested in how to build your own HTTP util class by wrap these deal client, so I could create a tutorial talking about that. And we could also create these cute interceptors wrapper, and the logic is the same as I show in here. So we're going to check our refresh token. Okay, so here I'm going to check if the refresh token, and then I can send a request. So probably the same, and those logic just right inside this on request, and we can have this on error. So on error we could check some status code. Suppose it's a 401. 401 means the token is expired. When the token expire, we're going to probably need to send to our token route again to refresh our token. So something like this. And after we success, we could trying to fetch this request and repeat this whole process. And after that, we could forward the request. Okay, that's all for today's lesson. I highly recommend you to reach out to the Deal official documentation. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next video. What's up everyone? Welcome back to my 4-Star School YouTube channel. So in today's lesson, we are going to talk about the cookie management using the deal package. I will assume you already watched out my previous lesson, talk about the interceptors, because today's lesson we're going to need some knowledge from the previous lesson. If you haven't checked out that one, feel free to check out that first. If you don't know what's cookie and session, it's okay because I will give you a brief knowledge about how cookie session works, and also we will manually create a cookie management using the interceptors, and then we could using the third-party library that already implement this cookie management for us. I will talk about that one as well. If you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page and you will find a bunch of Flutter tutorial. Talk about the Flutter GetX, Flutter UI, Flutter Network, Flutter widget, and Dart programming language tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum out my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. We will also talk about how to manage the user state in the Flutter. As you see, I create this basic login screen. When the user log in, next time when the app launch, the user don't need to sign in again because we manually manage the user state in our application. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. We will start from some basic network knowledge. As you see from this diagram, the HTTP protocol is stateless. So every time the client sends a request to the server will give response, but the server will not going to remember who sent this request if we are not going to using some extra method. In order to remember the user state, we introduce this cookie and session method. So first the client will send to the request and the server receive the request. At the same time, the server will create a session for that user, contain the session ID and also the expire time for that session, and will send a response, append the session ID into the cookie and send the cookie back to the client. So the next time the client will send request, the browser will automatically append the cookie. So the client doesn't need to probably log in again, and the server will find the client's information using the same session ID if it is not expired. There are several advantages and disadvantages. For advantage, the server will manage the user state, so the client doesn't need to log in again during the valid session period. For the disadvantage, in the client side, the cookie cannot append large amount of data to the server. So in the server side, every time when the new client comes in, the server going to create a new session ID for that client. You will waste a lot of resources when there are a large amount of clients trying to access your server. You're probably going to do a load balance during that situation. So you're going to share the session among different server clusters. There are another approach to solve this kind of problem. We're using the JWT token. If you guys interested in the JWT, I can create another video talk about that. In this tutorial, we only focus on cookie and session approach. So let's open our Visual Studio Code. Here I create very simple Node.js backend using this Express. The backend will create a valid session if the user enter the right credential. For texting purpose, we only make the session valid 30 seconds. When the app trying to access the home route, we first will check the user session. If user session exists, we will send a welcome message. Otherwise, we will send this 41 status code indicate the user is unauthorized, and then going to redirect user to the login screen. So in the login screen, if your user enter the correct credential, we're going to create a session for the user. And when the user trying to log out, we're going to destroy the user session. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Very simple. And we're going to use it to test our Flutter application. So let's look at the front end. In the front end, as you see, we have these login screen.dar I wrote before today's lesson, and it's very basic login screen, only contains those two text fields and one login button. When the app launch, so first we're going to send a request to this backend server to check if the author have valid section. If the user have valid section, we will using this navigator push. We're going to push the home route into our application. Otherwise, we just show the error message with our status code. Also, when the user press this login button, we actually will make a post request to the backend server, append our username and the password. If the response static code equals 200, we're going to navigate to logout screen. Right? Yeah, it's pretty simple in this login screen. When you press this login button, behind the scene is we using the cookie manager. As you see, I create this cookie manager class that extends the interceptors. So first, we're using this singleton approach to create our cookie manager, and then we override its own response method. We're going to save our cookie if the status code equals 200, and also we're going to clear our cookie if the response code equals 41. And in the request, we're going to append our cookie to these HTTP requests, so the server knows our valid session by checking these information inside our cookie. Right? It's pretty straightforward, and we can talk more about the singleton. So actually, I wrote the sample code to talk about the singleton. In the singleton, we only create one instance among all the application. And as you see, there are two approaches to create a singleton, but the common is we make the constructor private. So in the Dart, we have this factory keyword, and when you create instance, so you will return this static variable. The static variable will call this internal private constructor. So whenever when you create, how many objects you create, they always refer to the single one. So let's run this code, and you're going to see the console will print out the true, because those two instances are the same. We're using this equal. We will compare the two objects the same. This is our first approach. We're using this factory keyword. So let's combine it out. And another one is we're going to using this get keyword. In the second approach, we could access to this instant variable using a class name, because we make it a static. So let's run the code, and you will see the result is also the true. No matter how many instance you create, they all refer to the same one. By using the singleton design pattern, we can make sure every time we're using the same cookie manager. Since we extend the interceptor as what we talked in our last lesson, we're going to using deal.interceptor.add. We're going to add this cookie manager. So that's back to this login screen. So in line 31, as you see, using deal client.deal.interceptors, and I add our cookie manager instance. So by adding this line of code, our cookie manager will intercept the response and as well as the request. On the request, the interceptor will append the cookie if we have cookie. On the response, the interceptor will save the cookie if we have cookie. Yeah, that's pretty straightforward. And there are 3 actual methods inside this cookie manager. So the first one is initialize the cookie. We're going to use the share preferences to store the cookie we obtain from the server. And we have 2 methods. One is save the cookie and another one is clear the cookie. So the save cookie just save the cookie to the share preferences, and the clear cookie is clear the cookie in our share preferences. And we will call this initialize the cookie method in our main.dar. And as you see this line 10 inside our main method. So first I call this widget flutter binding.initialized method. After that I can call this initialize the cookie. If you want to put this line of code before the run app, you're going to call this initialize the method. Otherwise, you can put this initial cookie after your run app, as I shown here. We could something like this. If you put after this run app, you do not need to initialize the widget binding. Okay, so either way is fine. Let's save the code. Let's go over through the workflow again. So first we initialize the cookie. This line of code will call our cookie manager. We'll first check if we have the cookie string inside our share preferences. If it does, we're going to assign the cookie to this cookie variable. And then in our login screen, we add these interceptors with our cookie manager. So we will intercept the request as you see here, and we will append the cookie to our header. So that means if we have valid user session, we don't need to log in again. Okay, so let's test it in our Flutter app. And as you see in the server, we have very simple username and password. So first I'm going to enter the wrong password. So when I press this login, you will see the console will send it back. It says sorry, the wrong password or the user not found. And also I print out the currently cookie. So this cookie is I used, I think it's yesterday when I trying to test the app. So I'm going to make the new one. So let's enter this correct, the username and then the password. Let's clear the console. So when I log in again, you will direct us to the login page. And I can refresh this application within the valid session period, which is 30 seconds. So every time I click this rerun button, I don't need to log in again because the application already keeps our user state in the share preferences. So next time I send a request to the server, you will append our cookie. The cookie contains our session ID. If the session is in a valid period, we don't need to log in again. And as I said, I set the session valid 30 seconds. So we could try after 30 seconds. Let's try to refresh again. Yeah, as you see, after the session expired, we will clear our session in the server side. So next time when I refresh this restart button, the app will need us to enter our login credential. Okay, I hope you get the basic knowledge about how to manage the cookie session using Flutter DO package. And that's about the manual create these cookie manager by our own. So in the pub there, you can find a package called DO cookie manager. This third-party library already implemented this cookie manager for you. So we could back to our VS Code, and we're going to import first the cookie jar, and then we need to import this path provider, and the third one is this DO cookie manager. So we're going to import those three libraries in order to use the cookie manager implemented by the third-party library. So first we're going to implement those three, and then we can close this pub.yaml file, and let's back to our login screen. So first I'm going to comment it out my own cookie manager instance, right? So I'm going to comment it out, and I comment the code I wrote before. Okay, so this is we using the cookie management by the third-party library. So I'm going to comment now my own cookie manager and open the others one. Okay, so open this method also. Cookie manager. Sorry, should be cookie manager. Okay, sorry, should be here. Okay, let's save the code and let's look into this code. So first, we need to specify where we're going to store our cookie. So we're using this path provider. We will get our document path, and then we call this persistent cookie jar to specify where we're going to store our cookie. Using this file storage, we append our document path. And last is we're using this cookie manager provided by the DO cookie manager, and we append our persistent cookie. That's it. So we only need to wrote these 3 lines of code, and we don't need to implement our own cookie manager. And also in our main.r, we're going to comment out those lines of code as well, because this line of code we only need because we implement our own cookie manager, since we're using the third-party one, and we don't need those lines of code as well. And let's back to this login screen. Yeah, it's pretty simple and straightforward. Just put these 3 lines of code in your initial state. That's it. Let's try to test it. So let's restart our application. And first you see we got this status code 401, means we are no authorized. And then going to type our username and a password. Okay, let's try to log in. Yeah, we are able to log into our home page. And now I press this restart button. I will show next time we don't need to log in again, because it probably the same as we manually manage our own cookie. Okay, so we only need to log in when the session is expired. So we probably need to wait 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, we need to manually type the user credential again. Okay, so let's try it again. Okay, still valid. We can check our the backend. We assign a new session ID and to the client side. So the next time the client will append the session ID in the cookie and send back to the server. Okay, try it again. So since session expired, so we need to manually type the login credential again. Okay, that's all for today's lesson. We talk about the basic knowledge for HTTP, stateless, and also how to manage the user state using cookie and session approach. And then we talk about how to manually create our own cookie manager using the interceptors provided by the DO package. So we could save the cookie and append cookie by using these shared preferences. And last, we talk about how to incorporate with the third-party library, which is DO cookie manager, to achieve the same result. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next one. What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. So in today's lesson, we are going to look at the token management in Flutter using the deal package. In the last lesson, we have talked about how to manage the user state using cookie and session approach. Also, I have shown you how to implement the cookie manager using the deal package. For today, we're gonna use another approach, which is JWT token to manage the user state. So if you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page. You will find a bunch of Flutter tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So first, let's look at what is JWT token. So for the JWT token, compared with cookie and session approach, it's more lightweight. So in the server side, we are not store the token. We only store the JWT secret, which can generate the same token using the same credential. Let's look at the jwt.io website. As you see, the JWT token consists of three parts: the header, payload, and the verified signature. And if you change any three of them, you will set the signature verified failed. You will indicate it's invalid signature. I also using the Node.js to implement a very simple backend that will assign the JWT token when you send a request to the server. And here I using the package which is called a JSON web token. And here as you see, I have my credential and also I have my JWT secret. When you're sending the request to the home route, so first it will verify your token with the same JWT secret. If it verify, you will send the message tell you you're welcome to the home page. Otherwise, you will indicate you are not authorized. And then I create another route, which is a post route. User need to log in with their username and password. When the user trying to log in, we're going to assign the new token to the user with their username along with our JWT secret, and we're going to set the expire time for the token and also the algorithm to hash this JWT token, and then we send the token back to the user. So the next time the user using the same token would going to this home route, if the token is verified, it will into our home page, which will show this message. Otherwise, will indicate the user is unauthorized. Okay, that's very simple, just two routes. We will be using our front end, which is Flutter, to send a request, and we're using the deal package. And let's look at our front end. So for the front end side, let's talk about this token manager. We showed in the last lesson, we implement a cookie manager to manage the cookies assigned by the server side. So in this tutorial, I'm going to look at this token manager. So for the token manager, we're using the same approach, which is a singleton, to generate our token manager. And there are two ways to create a singleton. So first, you're using this factory constructor, and you make it this private name constructor. So another one is you using the static field, make it using this get keyword, and you will guarantee you will get the same instant every time when you're trying to access this object. And then we will have these string token. And by the way, it is extend this interceptor, so every time the request or response will capture by this interceptor. So for the response, we're going to save the token to our local storage, right? We were using the shared preferences in this time. So we were using the shared preferences to store our token. And also, if the response state is equal for 1, we're going to clear our token in local storage. And for the request, so every request we send to the server, we're going to append our token. As you see, I'm using this option request option header. I append our token and then send it back to the server. So I will call this route, this home route, and I'm going to verify if my token is valid. If it's valid, I will allow user to access our home route. Otherwise, I will say something wrong. Okay. The token manager class also contains this initial cookie method. We will use this method in our main.dart. So before we run our application, first I will call token manager instance.initialize our token to check if we have token in our local storage. If we have the token, we just append a token to every request we send. Otherwise, we just make it none. So back to the token manager, we have another two methods. One is save token, save the token to our local storage. Another one is clear token, which will clear our token in the local storage. Okay, that's pretty much it for our token manager. It's very similar like what we did in our cookie and session approach. Let's look at our login screen. So for the login screen, we have these token manager interceptor app to our deal client, so interceptors. So it will capture all our requests and response. Okay, so let's try to test our application. So first, let's input a wrong user credential. So let's try to log in. You will see in the console, we will have the message back shows we have a wrong password or user are not found. So this time, let's type the correct password. So let's try login. So after we have a correct user credential, you will print out our token, which assigned to us. Okay, so now, let's try restart this application. Since we already have token, so every time I restart this application, you will append a token to the server. So that means I don't need to log in again. And as you see, so in our backend, we will assign the token that will expire 30 seconds. So after 30 seconds, when you refresh this application, it will ask you to log in again because your token is expired. Another one is when you manually hit this logout button. So let's check out our logout screen. So when you hit this logout button, I call the token manager clear token. So I will clear the token in our local storage and also in our local variable. So next time when you're trying to restart this application, you won't append your token to the server because they was being assigned to now. Let's try to press this logout button. So when I press this logout button and then I refresh this application, as you see, you won't direct me to the home page because I already clear out my token. So you will show my status code is 4.1. Right. Okay, so let's look at the backend. So next time when I restart this application, you will verify the token. Since we clear our token, so you will get this 401 status code, means we are unauthorized, as you see here. Okay, I think that's all for today's lesson. You will need to make your own decision, like which method or approach you're going to use to keep the user safe. You could either use cookie session approach or this token approach. Okay, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, I will see you in next one. What's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. So in today's lesson, we are going to talk about the file management using the deal package. For file management, we will cover file upload and file download. So in this lesson, we will first demonstrate how you can upload your file to a server using this deal package. We will use Node.js to implement a very simple backend to handle the upload request from our frontend. Don't worry too much about the Node.js part because it's quite straightforward. I make it simple, and I will give an explanation how I achieve to handle the request from a frontend. And we will incorporate with the DL package to sending these requests to upload the file to our server. And if you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page and you will find a lot of Flutter tutorial. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. I will use image as the example to demonstrate how to upload the file to the server. And the package we are using in Flutter is called image picker. So let's look into this image picker. And the image picker is a plugin that you can use in Flutter to picking the image from the image library, such as your photo gallery or from your camera. But before we can use this image picker for our project, there are some steps we need to do. So first is open this pub specific YAML file as a dependence. So let's go back to our project. So let's open this pub specific YAML file. The first step is you add this dependence under the dependence tag as shown here. And the next step is a configure for the iOS part. And as I show you, we gonna add some key and string in our info list under this iOS folder. So in our project, let's open this iOS folder, click this runner. Inside this runner, you will find this info list. So scroll down, you'll see those three keys we're going to add in our project. The first one is NS photo library usage description, and we're going to add this key, and we add a description string, so this can be anything. So here I just put pick image from the photo library. Another key we need to add here is NS camera usage description. As the same as the first one, we add another description string. So the last one is NS microphone usage description. We also add a description for this key, and this is all you need to do for the iOS part. So close this iOS folder, and for Android part, you're going to check if your API is smaller than 29. If you are smaller than 29, you're going to configure inside your Android manifest to give the permission. If you are greater than 29, you don't need to do this step. So let's open our project. Under this Android folder, we're going to open this app folder, source folder, and main folder. we will find this Android manifest. So you're going to add this configure under this application tag. So you will write request legacy external storage, and you're going to make it true. This is what you're going to do in Android part, as long as you have the API less than 29. Okay, that's the basic requirement you need to do for use this image picker. So the next part is build our front-end side using the Flutter. Let's open our emulation. As you see, it's very simple and straightforward screen, contain a button and an image icon. So let's look into this file, and let's open our deal file manager, this class. This class extends stateful widget, and we're going to keep track of this file and create an instance of our image picker. So let's scroll down. So first we have these column widget, and inside this center widget, and also we make these column widget align in center, and then we will check if we contain the image. If the image is no, we're going to display this add image icon. Otherwise, we're going to show the image. So when you press this button, we're going to open our photo gallery. So inside this photo gallery, we're going to using this image picker to pick image, and the source is from our image gallery. Then we're going to set state and change our image file to the file we choose, and you will see the image will display on the screen. So let's try this. So let's pick the image from the gallery. So when you press the button, you will give you an alert, ask you for the permission. Since I already clicked that, so you won't see in my screen. So here I'm going to pick the first image. So after you pick the image, you will display on our screen. Because we're using this stateful widget, when I click the button for choosing the image I want, I will change the state of this image file. So you will call the setState method, and you will re-render our widget and display our image. Okay, that's for our front-end part. And after the image is shown, we have another button beside this image, which is handle our upload image request to the backend server. So this is basically everything for our front-end side. So let's look into the backend. So for the backend, we're using the Node.js, and we are using this Express, and the plugin we use is called Multier, and I will post the documentation for this Multier in the description below. The Multier is a Node.js middleware for handling the multi-part form data, so which is primarily used for uploading the files. Okay, and it's pretty straightforward, so let's go over through it. And first we import those library, and we're using the Express, and we have these post route, and we're going to check the request of file. If it is undefined or is unknown, we're going to send a bad request. Otherwise, we're going to send a successful request. Okay, and it's pretty straightforward. In order to control the file the user sent to the server, we're using this multi disk storage. So first we configure the path that the user image will be stored. So as you see, the path would be under uploads under the images. So as you see in my left panel, when the user update the image, you will automatically save under these uploads images path. And then we're going to change the name for the file, and we using that.now, and we append the original file name. So that's basically everything for this backend. And back to the front-end side, let's see how we handle a request. So let's scroll down to this upload image method. So when you call this upload image method, so first you're going to construct the phone data using phone data flow map, and you're going to pass your JSON object. And this part is very important. You're going to await this multi-file from file, and you append the image file, because this is a synchronized operation, so you must await for this entire process complete, and then you will send this method using the deal.post, and you append this phone data to the deal request. That's it. It's pretty straightforward and simple. But there is one more thing you need to pay attention, which is this key. So as you see inside this JSON, our key is this image, and we append our image file. So back to the backend. So we're going to specify the send key as we use here, since we upload a single file, and we will append our key, which is the image. So suppose I change this to a file, our key in our backend should be file as well. So we need to exactly match those keys in the front end as well as the backend. Okay, that's very important part. Otherwise, you cannot upload your file to the server. So that's pretty much it, and we can try this out in our simulator. So let's press this button, and as you see in our backend folder, we don't have any images saved in our server. So let's try this out, and I'm going to click this upload button. So let's press it. When I click this button, as you see, we already successful upload the image to the server, and I get the name of the image back. So it will contains the date string and .jpg. So let's back to the backend server, and you see the backend, this upload folder, we have these images in our backend server, which is the same we choose from our front end. So let's choose another image. So let's pick from the gallery. So we're going to choose this waterfall. Okay, so let's upload it again. And back to the front end side, you see we successfully upload another image. So as you see, this one will be the image we choose from the client side, which we are using a Flutter. Okay, so that's pretty much it for uploading the file to your backend server. We're using these Express and this Multier plugin. Okay, that's all for today's lesson. We have covered how to upload the file to backend server using the deal. We will cover how to download the image from server in the coming lesson. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next video. What's up everybody? So for today's lesson, we are going to talk about the file download in a Flutter using this deal package. Along we'll also talk about the cancel token in the deal, which you can cancel the download and restart it again. If you are new to my channel, feel free to reach out to my channel page, and you will find a bunch of Flutter tutorial there. So far we have covered a Flutter GetX tutorial, a Flutter UI tutorial, Flutter Network tutorial, Flutter widget tutorial, and Dart programming language tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum out my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. We're going to open the Visual Studio Code and the iOS emulator. And I will give you a quick demo how this downloading file works in the Flutter. So as you see in my emulator, I have a download button, and also I have this cancel button which can cancel my currently download, and I also have this delete button to delete the file after I download it. So let's click this button. When I click, you will see this progress bar indicate I starting to download the file, and I can cancel it anytime. And when I successful download it, I can delete. For now, the delete button is disabled since it's on process. So let's cancel this download process. And when I trying to hit this delete button, you can see in the console the file doesn't exist, so we are not able to delete it. And I will show you in the code how I achieve these. So let's look at our Mindmap. So for the download, first thing you're going to configure where you're going to store your file. So here I'm using a library which called path provider. So we will get a temporary directory which is the cache that will be cleared by the system. And another one is we can get the application document directory. So the file stored in this part won't be cleared by the system, and you just need to clear it manually. So let's look at this library on the website. When you go to the pub.dev website and you search this path provider, you will see this documentation. In order to use it, we need to go to our pub species YAML file, and as you see, I already included in line 40 under our dependence tag. So we will put here and just save the pub species YAML file. In the Flutter project, we're going to install the library, and then you're going to import the path provider in our DO file download. And I declare the variable which is called a destination path. So I using this let keyword, and I will going to initialize this destination path inside this onInState method. So in the initial state, I will first call this get application document directory, and I will since this is a synchronized approach, so I using this len keyword, and I will store this directory append with the file I'm going to download. So in this demo, I'm going to download a Google Chrome for my Mac OS. So the file extension is DMG. So I just append this file with extension to the part, this temporary part which I obtain after I get this application document directory. For the percentage indicator, I'm going to use another third-party library which is called percentage indicator. Let's show you. When you go to pub.dev and you search percentage indicator, you will find this library with thousands of likes. And here I'm going to use the linear percentage indicator in my project. So let's back to the code, and since as the path provider, I'm going to import a library. As you see here, line 43, I import library and save the code. The Flutter project, we're going to install this dependent for us. And back to this file download. And in order to show these progress, we're going to use these class, which is called linear percentage indicator. We have a percentage that accept these double, and let's see, this is download ratio. So for the download ratio, initial I assign 0. When I start download, I'm going to update its state. So let's see, I have a download method, download file method. Inside this download file, I'm going to update this download ratio. Right? I will be the receive part divide the total part. I will talk about this method in detail later. So back to this Mindmap file, and also we're going to use this cancel token inside the deal package to cancel our delete. In order to use this cancel token, there are some procedure we're going to follow. So first you're going to construct your cancel token, and then you append this cancel token to the request. For example, we're going to sending the get request. We're using deal.get and append our token, cancel token, to this request. And then whenever we call a token.cancel, it will cancel our request. And you can assign any messages within this method. You will show on the console. There is something you need to pay attention when you cancel your request. The app will throw the deal arrow, and the deal arrow type is cancellation. So you're going to check if the deal arrow is equal the cancellation. Depends on the deal arrow type, you're going to handle it. Okay, let's back to the code, and we'll start from the top. So first I declare this file download class, which extend the stateful widget, and the state going to manage is called file download state. So inside the class file download state, we declare some variable. So the first one is download part. So we could change this download part. And first I'm going to show you is how to download the bigger file. So we could cancel it, right? And then I can show you how to download an image, because image is pretty small compared to these DMG file. So it's instantly finished. So you don't see this cancel anyway. So another one is this destination part. I mark it as late keyword because I'm going to initialize it inside the initial state. So for our cancel token, I'm going to initialize this cancel token inside this download file method. Right? I will going to construct the new cancel token each time for downloading file. So the reason I'm doing this because if I construct this cancel token in here, so there will be the send token. And you know, when you're sending the request, each request is different. So we must declare this cancel token inside this download file method. So that will be different every time. So you can cancel this as many times as you want. If you declare in this line 21, you construct your cancel token here. That means you can only cancel once for your request. So that means when I click this download file, I can cancel for the first time. And then when I start again, I press this cancel button, the whole application will crash. Next, a variable is downloading. So initialize, I'm going to give it false. So when it turns to true, I'm going to hide this delete button, make it disable. So for the double type of this download ratio, I set it at 0% initially. And as you see, we have this text widget contain these 0.00%, download indicator. This is a string type. We're going to using a string interpretation to change when the download start. Okay, let's scroll down. Yeah, we already talked about this initial state method. We're going to assign this part to our destination part. And for this screen, we wrapped inside the scaffold widget, and we're using the center widget to center this column. And so let's scroll down. We have this row widget. The row widget has 3 buttons. One is download, which is elevated button, and then we have a cancel button and the delete button, right? So in the download button, we have a method which is download file will be triggered, and for the cancel button, we have a cancel download will be triggered. So for the delete button, we have a delete file, a method will be triggered. Okay, so scroll down. We have this linear percent indicator. Okay, and also we have test widget to show these percentage. For this linear percentage indicator, I also wrapped inside this expanded widget. That means take as much as possible to fit this row, right? So since this text widget only took very little weight, so it won't cause any problem if you're using like this. Okay, let's scroll down to the download file method. For the download file method, we took 2 parameters. The first one is download part, and another one is the destination part. So the download part is the URL we're going to download. So inside this download file, first we construct this cancel token. Then we have this downloading reset to true when the user press this download button, and we're using the deal download method append with our download part, destination part, and also the cancel token. When you move your mouse, you will see this download file also receive these void function as the argument. So we will call it on receive, right? So the first parameter is the receive, and the second parameter is the total. So I just name it received and the total. So if the total no equals to -1, that means we don't have any error occurred, so we could start download file. And we will check if the cancel token is canceled. If it's no canceled, we're going to change the state for this progress indicator. So first we will change this download ratio by assigning to this receive divide by the total. If the download ratio is equal to 1, which we finish the download, we're going to change this downloading to false, right? And also for this download indicator, which is a string, so we're going to use this download ratio times 100, and we use a toString as a fixed method, and we will change this text as well. Okay, that's it for the download file. As you see, we're using this try catch block because as I mentioned, we're using this cancel token. So whenever we cancel this process, you'll throw this still arrow, and the arrow type is the cancellation. So we're using cancel token dot is cancel, and we pass this arrow to this method. If it's cancellation, we will print in a debug console like a request is cancelled. Right? Otherwise, we just capture the normal arrow. Okay, that's for our file download method. And next is the cancel download method. It's simple and quite straightforward. So first we're going to check if the download ratio is less than 1. And if it's less than 1 means we can cancel it. So we just call cancel token.cancel, right? And we can change this downloading status to false. And we call set state method and change this progress indicator and the text. Okay, that's for the cancel download. The next one is this delete file. So for the delete file, we're going to receive this destination part. And first, we're going to construct this file using the destination part. If the file exists, we're going to delete. Otherwise, we will throw the error, right? We using this try catch block, and for the catch, we just throw the error. If the destination part is correct, we will obtain this download file. But we will check if the download file exists. If it exists, we're going to call file.delete method. Otherwise, we just print the file doesn't exist. When I delete the file, we're going to set the state to the initial. Okay, means I'm going to change downloading to false, image file to none. This one is, let's comment it out first, and download ratio to 0 and download indicator to 0%. Okay, I will comment this out when we change the download the URL to the image. Okay, so let's save it, and we're going to test it. So first, let's click this download button. So when I click the download, it starts to download. Okay, and we could cancel it anytime when I press this cancel button. When download start, the delete button is disabled. Okay, so let's cancel it. Let's look at the console. It means the request is canceled. Right, and we could start again. Okay, let's cancel it. And now I'm going to replace this download URL to an image. So just comment this out and uncomment this part. So for the image file, so let's scroll down, and we will check if the image file is none. If it's not, we are not showing anything. Otherwise, we're going to show the image. Right, so scroll down to the download file. Okay, we're going to assign this file to our image file. Okay, after the download success. Okay, and for delete, we're going to delete our image. Okay, so let's save it. Since we change this variable, we're going to restart our application. Okay, now our application are able to download the image, which is a Flutter logo. So let's press this download. Okay, it's just cost 1 second, so I haven't got chance to cancel it. So it indicates we successful download this file, and it's shown on the screen, right? Let's try to delete it. When I press the delete, you will see the delete file success. Okay, so when I click delete again, it will show the file doesn't exist. Okay, right. Okay, that's pretty much it for this tutorial. We go over through how to download a file using the deal package, and also show you how to use this cancel token to cancel the request. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open a notification so you won't miss out any latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you in next one. What's up everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's lesson, we are going to talk about the JSON and serialization in the Flutter. So if you haven't watched my previous tutorial, feel free to reach out to my channel page, and you will find a Flutter GetX tutorial, Flutter UI tutorial, a Flutter Network tutorial, and Flutter widget tutorial, and Dart programming language tutorial. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel, sum up my content, and open the notification so you won't miss out the latest Flutter tutorial. Okay, without further ado, let's get started. So first we're going to talk about what's JSON. So JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, and it's a lightweight format for storing and transforming the data. It's often used when data is sending over the internet. The syntax rule for JSON is quite straightforward. So first, the data is in name and value pairs, and the data is separated by commas, and curly brace holds object, and square bracket hold arrays. So let's back to the Visual Studio Code. And as you see here, I created this user.json file, and as we mentioned, these curly braces hold object, which means it holds a user object, and we have a name and value pair. So the name is my name and the email is my email, and it's separated by the comma. We will use this JSON file in our project because we're going to talk about the serialization and deserialization. Another term for serialization is encode. So for the deserialization is decode. And there are two approaches to serialization JSON in the Flutter. So the first one is the manual approach, and the second one is we could import the third-party library that automatically serialization for us. So let's discuss the first approach, that is the manual serialization. For the manual serialization, we will need the package is Dart converter, and we will have a module class to convert the JSON to the user model. So back to the code, and here we have this JSON file is under this assets folder. So in order to use this JSON file, we're going to specify it in our pub/cpc YAML file in line 64, and we're going to open this assets tag and write down our location for our JSON file. So it's assets user JSON. So let's save it, and after we save it, we could access this user JSON in our Flutter file. That's back to main.dart, and here we will use the template code, and because we only focus on those two methods, one is encode JSON, another is decode JSON, so we don't focus too much on the UI thing. And here I just have two buttons, one is decode JSON, another is encode JSON. In order to load our JSON from the file, we're going to import this Flutter server.dart, and after we import the server.dart, we will access to this root bundle, and we could load our JSON string. And then we're using this Dart converter method called JSON decode, and we will convert this user string into Dart map. As you see in this Mindmap, the JSON decode is turn the JSON string into Dart map, and the JSON encode is the reverse. We turn the Dart map into the JSON string. And back to the code, and for the decode, we load the JSON string and we turn into the Dart map, and I'm using this debug print to print out the name attribute inside our user map and also the email. So let's comment out the rest part. Okay, let's save the code, and I'm going to switch to my debug console. So when I press this button, you will see we successful get those value inside our user map. So for the name is my name and the email is my email. Is successful convert these user JSON string into the Dart map. For the JSON encode, it's a reverse process. So first we will declare the user map contains the name and the email, and we will using JSON.encode, and we will put our user map, and you will return the user string. So let's click this encode button and see the console. We'll get this map string, which is exactly the same as our user.json. That's the basic idea about the JSON serialization. And however, in our project, we will need this model class because we were using the data from the JSON and to create our own model. So for example, back to the code, and here I create a class which is the user.dar, and it's our user model. We have this name attribute and email attribute. So in order to construct our user, we're going to write two methods. So the first one is user.fromJSON, and we will receive the Dart map, and we will return this user object. Another one is we will turn this user object into this Dart map. So let's look in our code again. Back to this main.dart, and let's comment out this code inside our decode.json. So as you see, we have our JSON string, and we turn into map using this JSON decode, right? When we have this user map, we could pass it to this user.fromJSON as the parameter, and it will return this user object back to us. So let me comment out the debug print for line 66 and 67, and I'm going to clear the console and press this decode JSON again, and you will see we will access this user.name and the user.email because we construct our user using this user map, which is from our JSON string. So let's try it out. When I click, you will see in the debug console, we print out the username and the user email because we successfully construct our user object using this user.fromJSON method, which is a name constructor for our user object. Let's look at the two JSON method inside this encode JSON. So for encode JSON, we could construct our user object using this constructor, and we will call it its instance method to convert our user object to the start map. So when we have the map, we could further using this JSON encode and turn into the user string. So let's the manual approach to convert the JSON string into our model class, or inverse, convert our model class back to the JSON string. However, it's quite tedious if you have lots of model class and you're going to write these from JSON to JSON for every model class you have. So let's introduce another approach, which is automatically serialization using the third-party library. And the library we're going to use is JSON annotation, build runner, and the JSON serialization. I will also list the official documentation in the description below, so feel free to check this README file. And back to the Visual Studio Code, in order to use this code generator. So first we're going to declare our JSON annotation under this dependence tag. And for this builder runner and JSON serialization, we're going to put it under this step dependence. So this is the first step. So after you put those dependents in your pubs BC YAML file, and you're going to wait for a few seconds to download the necessary dependents. So the next part is create our model class using the JSON annotation. So let's open our user/auto.dart file. So let me delete this auto generate code file for now. So when I delete, you will see I got error. Don't worry about those error for now, because we will run the command to solve these error. So let's look at the code for now. So first, we're going to import this JSON annotation library. Then we could use this annotation we put before our class name. We're using this add JSON serializable. And we have these bracket, and then scroll down, we will have the user dot from JSON and to JSON, those two methods. So in order to let code auto generate those for us, we're going to put these and slash $ user dot from JSON. So this would be the same as your class name. So if you have a class called book, you're going to write it book from JSON, and you put JSON here. So the same thing for this user to JSON. So this should be the same as your class name, and you have an underscore and this $sign before your class name. So after you put those, you will auto generate these from JSON and to JSON method for you. Okay, so scroll down, and the last part you're going to add is this line 6. You're going to add this part keyword, and you're going to put user.auto.generate.dart, which will include the automatically generate code for you. So let's run the command to generate the code. So let's switch to the terminal in our Visual Studio Code. The command we're going to run is called flutter pub run build runner and build. So let's run this command. Flutter pub run build runner build. So when I hit this enter key, you will auto generate those two methods for us. One is from JSON, another is to JSON. And you will create the user/auto.g.dart file for us, and we will include those files in our user/auto.dart file as we CPC in here. So just wait a few minutes until the action complete. So after a few minutes, the code auto generate for us, which include these user from JSON method and the user to JSON method. So those two methods what we need from our user auto.dart, right? And you also see the error all gone. So let's try to use this user auto file in our main.dart. So I import this JSON serializable user.auto.dart, right? So before I was using this JSON serializable user.dart, which we create this user from JSON and user to JSON by our own. So let's comment out our serialization user.dart, and let's try to use this user auto.dart. By using this user auto.dart, all the code is generated from this generator. You will generate the user from JSON and user to JSON for us. So we could use those two methods as well. So in our main.r, and let's restart our application. So first we're going to try this decode JSON. We'll still load the JSON string and try to convert to the user object. As we mentioned, this user dot from JSON, this one is the code auto-generate for us, user from JSON. Okay, so let's try. Click this button. So when I click, you see everything is work fine, and we have my name and my email address, and we have construct this user object successful. Okay, let's scroll down. Let's try this encode JSON. For the encode JSON, we first construct this user object, and we call user.toJSON, and you will return this user map, and we're going to encode the user map, and we got this user string. So let's try press this encode JSON, and as you see, the result is what we want. It's exactly the same as this user JSON. We got the name and the email. Okay, so that's everything for today's lecture. So for today, we cover two approaches to serialization of JSON. So the first approach is manually serialization, and the second approach is automatically serialization using code generator. I will also post this JSON serializable link in the description below. Feel free to reach out to this page, and if you need some advanced feature from this library, the documentation is all with very good resources to read. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, submit my content, and open the notification. I will see you in next one.